Hello and welcome back to Pain-Free at Any Age. Hopefully at this point you're starting to understand that muscle tension isn't mechanical, but it's actually a function of your nervous system and consciousness. In the last video, I covered the 3 basic tools needed to rewire your body for less pain, stress, and tension. So if you haven't watched that video yet, make sure you go back and do that first. In this video, I'm going to expand on that and share with you the 3 neural states related to stress and tension and how to recognize which state you're actually in. I'm Sukie Baxter, founder of Whole Body Revolution, and I help you to rewire yourself for greater health, happiness, and success. Okay, so in the last video, I talked about how muscle tension is a function of your nervous system. In fact, all tension is consciousness. You could even say that your body is your unconscious mind. It's constantly sending sensory information about your environment to your brain, which interprets all the data and reacts accordingly. The key word there is react. Most of our behavior, and muscle tension is a type of behavior, is triggered by unconscious habit. Your body senses a particular set of circumstances which may or may not relate to the circumstances you've experienced before, and your brain responds automatically. Now, if you're in a relaxed and present state, it's easy to respond to what's actually happening right now. But most of us aren't in that state. Most of us are holding on to stress and trauma in our nervous systems, which puts us in a state of reactivity. Our responses are based on past experiences and circumstances and not on what's actually happening in the moment. It also predisposes us to look for danger everywhere. When your nervous system is stuck in survival, even neutral faces look threatening. You're on the lookout for predators, which in modern times can appear as financial or job stress, relationship issues, or even your kid getting a bad grade on a test. Having your nervous system frozen in one of these survival states also makes you more sensitive to pain. You'll experience higher levels of pain with less stimulus. Your brain is looking for survival threats. It's on heightened alert, and pain indicates a threat to your survival. So your brain will take the tiniest bit of discomfort and blow it out of proportion. Note that this is not the same as your pain being made up or all in your head. The pain that you experience is absolutely real, but it doesn't mean there's an injury or a structural problem to explain it. I'll talk more about that in a future video. But for now, let's go over the 3 neural states and how to recognize which one you're in. Your autonomic nervous system controls involuntary bodily functions such as heart rate, breathing, digestion, and blood flow. It's also responsible for your response to stressful stimuli. According to Stephen Porges, the originator of polyvagal theory, there are 3 states of autonomic nervous system activation. The first and oldest state is dorsal vagal shutdown, which evolved 500 million years ago. This branch is responsible for fear immobilization and playing possum. A person who's in dorsal vagal shutdown may come across as not really there, they seem distant and detached, and their posture might be kind of slumped or collapsed, giving the impression of hopelessness or despondency. Dorsal vagal shutdown is a state of collapse where you're dissociated from your present moment experience, including feelings and sensations in your body. This is a state of self-preservation when escape or fending off a threat isn't an option. The second state is sympathetic activation, which evolved about 400 million years ago. The sympathetic nervous system is responsible for your startle response, which happens very quickly, under 100 milliseconds. A person locked in sympathetic nervous system activation may come across as always on the go. Their eyes may be tightly focused on what's in front of them without much awareness of the periphery. Or they may dart around, rarely landing on any person or object for very long. This person could be labeled as uptight or rigid, and their presence might trigger anxiety in you. Your sympathetic nervous system allows you to mobilize in order to run away from a threat or to fight it off. If a person doesn't have the physical or emotional resources to deal with a threat, or if the stress is prolonged and unending, a person may shift into dorsal vagal shutdown instead. The third and most recent autonomic nervous system state to evolve at 200 million years is ventral vagal social engagement. It's this branch that allows us to feel connection and empathy for others. When you're in a ventral vagal state, your immune system is functioning optimally, you feel relaxed and calm, and yet you still have access to energy. Joy is easy to access, and you're able to feel empathy for others. It's this state that allows us to form deep connections with ourselves and with others. It's also in this state that we have the most access to focus and creativity. A ventral vagal state allows you to be here in the present moment rather than living out of past conditioning and reactivity. Stress is a normal part of life. In a healthy, regulated nervous system, you'd respond to stressful stimulus by shifting out of the ventral vagal state into either sympathetic or dorsal vagal activation, after which the threat would pass and you would return to a nice, happy social engagement state. However, modern life does not always allow for us to discharge stress from our bodies. Sometimes stress is ongoing, like a fast-paced career or financial difficulties or maybe caring for an ailing relative. And an argument could be made that with its never-ending stimulation, modern life is inherently traumatizing. And of course, not all of us start out with healthy, happy, well-regulated nervous systems. We pattern our nervous systems on those of others. So if your early life caregivers were stuck in sympathetic activation, for example, you might be too. And you've probably been this way your whole life, so it feels normal. You might even think of it as an aspect of your personality. A person locked in sympathetic overdrive often looks like a go-getter, a high achiever, or someone who is always on the move, always setting goals and accomplishing things. A person in dorsal vagal shutdown, on the other hand, might come across as depressed or lethargic, having low energy, or an inability to self-motivate. Your sympathetic nervous system arises from nerve bundles located along your spine, so a person with high sympathetic activation often experiences tension and pain in their back and torso. While tight muscles are an indication of sympathetic activation, hypermobility can be associated with dorsal vagal shutdown, which puts a person into a state of collapse. Generally, people are not completely stuck in one or the other, but move between all three states. Recognizing and identifying your autonomic state is the first step in unwinding patterns of locked tension in your body. It allows you to begin to recognize your conditioned responses to stress. And I really want to emphasize the importance of this. If you're wondering how all this connects to your tight hips or hunched shoulders, let me just take a moment to explain. Your posture is an expression of your internal state. As I already mentioned, sympathetic activation is directly linked to tension around your spine, and a person in dorsal vagal shutdown may have a curved forward rounded spine that you would identify as computer posture. We tend to blame technology for all our postural woes and the pain that comes with them, but actually tons of research draws no correlation between posture and pain at all. And further, Professor of Neurology and pain scientist Lorimer Moseley states that pain is not an indication of tissue health. Both of these problems, posture and pain, have at their root disordered autonomic nervous system states. I'll talk more about it in the next video, but for now, begin the process of recognizing and naming your present moment autonomic state. Download the PDF chart below this video and review the list of symptoms. Note which state seems to correlate most with your default way of functioning, but also begin to notice which state you're in as you move through your life. Which state are you in when you're at your office or when you arrive at your office? Which state are you in when you're having lunch with a coworker or focusing on a project? Which state are you in during a date night with your spouse? There's no need to try to shift or change states. Simply placing your attention on which state you're in begins to create separation between stimulus and response. It allows you to notice how you're responding to the people, places, and situations you come into contact with every single day in your life. This begins to break up your habitual patterns of reactivity, like hitting the reset button on your brain and body. It allows you to begin to reprogram yourself for new ways of functioning. I'll see you in the next video where we're going to be talking about the embodied stress response and the role of trauma in pain and tension.